Good afternoon. Welcome. If this is your first time joining us, I'm Buffy from the Recovering Perfectionist Mama podcast, Grace in Progress. And for those of you who've not tuned in before, I'm a women's lifestyle creator on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. And I do a lot of women's topics such as marriage and family, relationships, children, as well as self-empowerment issues, mental health, fitness and nutrition, leveling up. Ultimately, my goal is to provide you with information that you might not have heard about, or be able to take a deeper dive into it so you understand what it's all about. Topics such as cycle syncing, which weren't as mainstream as they seem to be currently getting to be, as well as functional health, as well as self-empowerment, mental health, as well as leveling up, because ultimately I would like you to see and live the life that you want to live and show your children and your family and have a legacy of encouraging your children and showing them by your actions that you're living a great life and that they can live a great life as well. So without further ado, let's talk about today's topic. Today's topic is one near and dear to my heart. As you can probably tell from my username, Recovering Perfectionist Mama, I clearly have an understanding of perfectionism. Not on the right side of perfectionism, but perfectionism, right? And so this is called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. So, okay, let's have a real conversation here. How many of us have not done something we wanted to do simply because we were afraid to fail? Don't worry, no one can see you. I can't even see you, whether you raised your hand or not. But I would bet that most of us have had that paralysis, that concern that, oh my goodness, like what if I fail? I'm going to look so stupid. People are going to laugh at me. I'm going to have egg on my face. And people are just going to have a grand old time at my expense. Unfortunately, sometimes that can be true depending on who your circle is, depending on what type of people actually know that you failed, because I think that there is this big stigma and this big culture in some ways that people like to see others fail. I'm actually the type of person who claps for everybody. I want people to succeed. I want people to be happy. I don't believe that if another person wins, that means that I'm going to lose automatically, because that's not how it works. Because ultimately, life is not a zero-sum game, right? One person isn't going to win and the other person going to lose. That's not how it works. We need to cheer for others. We need to support others, and others also need to support us, right? So today we're diving into it. Fear of failure. Sounds kind of scary, right? Why it owns us, how it lies to us, and exactly what to do to take back our control. If you've ever felt stuck, anxious, or like you're living a small version of the life you actually want, this episode's for you. Now let's get into it. You don't need to be fearless to succeed. You just need a strategy. So let's start with the truth bomb. Fear of failure is normal. It doesn't make you abnormal. It doesn't make you strange. It doesn't make you weird. It doesn't make you a wounded person. It makes you a human being. It's human to fear failure. But it's also a liar. Fear of failure is rarely about actual failure. It's about shame, it's about rejection, and it's about embarrassment, disappointment, and losing our identity or our credibility. We fear what failure says about us. I failed becomes I'm a failure, and that's the trap. So just because you're not able to succeed the first time you try, does that make you a failure? Ultimately, I would argue that a failure is a person who fails because they give up trying. Not because that they're unworthy, not because they failed, not because, they're a loser, or anything of that sort, right? And sometimes I would also dare to say that we learn more from our failures than we learn from our wins. Because our failures require us, if we want to succeed, to step back and say, what did I do wrong? And how can I improve upon my performance? How can I get what I am searching for? And that is the light bulb moment that takes us to where we need to be. And I would also say that sometimes we have to experience the bitter and the painful to appreciate the sweet, right? That's what we sometimes have to do. I know we don't want to. I know that, that sometimes sounds like counterintuitive, but I do believe that. I feel like I look back on my life and some of my moments where I didn't succeed like I wanted to, I look back and I realize that it pushed me, it fueled me to fight for what I actually wanted. So, reasons why we fear failure. Let's call it out. Here are 5 reasons people stay paralyzed by failure. Perfectionism. As I said, I knew a little something about perfectionism. You're waiting until you're ready. Guess what? You're never going to be 100% ready. You're never going to be 100% comfortable, especially when you're stepping into the unknown. And that's okay. Everybody feels like that, right? You may feel anxious. You may feel sweaty palms. You may go through all the anxiety symptoms. Do it anyway, right? But perfect doesn't exist. Progress does, right? Get one step closer to your goal each day, one step. Build upon each other. Build upon each other. Let each action build upon the other. Fear of judgment. You're scared of what others will think. So what? How do we know what they're going to think, right? I remember there's this quote by Eleanor Roosevelt that said, other people's opinions of you is none of your business. And that's true, right? Why should we base our lives on what Sally across the street thinks, or what someone on a social media app thinks, or even, like our mother's best friend or our aunt or whoever, right? Base your opinion of yourself on yourself, what you're doing. Your moves are your own. Your motivation is your own. You are your own person. You have the right to make the decision of what you want to do. Also, oftentimes you think people are talking about you and gossiping about you and thinking, oh my gosh, she was so stupid to have done that, or he was so stupid to have done that. Guess what? Most of the time, people are more concerned that you are talking about them and have a negative opinion of them. They're too worried about what they're doing and too engrossed in their stresses and their worries to worry about what you're doing and whether you look silly or whether, you're ridiculous or anything like that. I truly believe that. Past failures. You failed before, so you assume that the future will repeat itself. But you're older, wiser, stronger, more life experience. If we learn from our failures, we're only going to go onward and upward, right? Now, will that always happen? Maybe, maybe not. Just depends on you and what you want to do. But ultimately, try to keep a good mindset. A good mindset is really one of your best assets to achieving what you want to achieve. And also, you're not who you were back then. Like I said, you're younger, maybe less experienced, less wise, maybe cockier, who knows? We've all slept since then. We've all grown since then. Over-identification. You tie your worth to your success. So if you don't succeed in this, then what? You're not worthy? You deserve to be laughed at? You deserve to be mocked? Absolutely not, right? Everyone makes mistakes. And I dare to gamble that anyone would be extremely upset to be judged by their worthiness based on their failures. Because we've all failed. Everyone has failed, right? No one is without a failure. If they are, bring that person to me, because clearly that's impossible unless they're not human, right? So any failures feels like you're the problem. You're not. We're not going to win everything, right? Have you ever heard the phrase, you win some, you lose some? Sure you do. We all do. And it's painful and it hurts, but we work through it and we continue to work to build on our dreams, to work to achieve what we want to achieve. Catastrophizing. Say that word 5 times fast. You imagine the worst case scenario every time, and I'm often guilty of this. Like I legitimately overreact to certain situations. I think some of it is trauma, some of it is just an anxious personality sometimes, I don't know. But I'm literally oh my goodness, this is going to go so terrible. As I say, prepare for the worst case scenario and then be happy when it doesn't go that way. And then let that image run the show, right? Stop. You're not a fortune teller. You're not a psychic. You're not any of that. The future hasn't happened yet. What if it goes right, right? Isn't that the best question? What if it goes right? What if it works out? What if you succeed beyond your wildest expectations? Wouldn't that be fabulous? Absolutely. That would be awesome. How fear of failure keeps you in a loop. Here's the cycle. You get an idea, you get excited, then fear creeps in. You overthink it. I have the card for the Overthinkers Club. I don't know how many of you have that as well. You talk yourself out of it, you regret it, and you promise you'll try next time. Repeat. Sound familiar? This is the fear loop. And it won't break on its own. It breaks when you act despite fear, not when the fear disappears. Because is fear ever going to disappear? No. It's a part of life, right? It's part of something that we're going to have to experience again, and we need to learn to be desensitized to it and act despite our fear. Let's talk about 7 actionable strategies to overcome fear of failure. Let's get into the good stuff. Real world tools that you can use today. Name the fear. Don't just say, I'm scared. Say what you're scared of. I'm afraid I'll launch this and no one will buy. I'm afraid I'll mess up and look stupid. Many of us have that fear. Clarity shrinks fear. Oftentimes I found that when I have this crazy wild thought in my head, this sounds ridiculous to me, but yet I keep repeating it and ruminating on it, that when I say it out loud to another person, it loses its power. Because that person looks at me and confirms what I already knew when I was ruminating in my head, that fear is ridiculous, right? It's just ridiculous and lame and makes no sense. But when you keep it in your head and you keep ruminating on it, it sounds like it might be a possibility. So try that trick as well. Redefine failure. Ask, what if failure is the tuition you pay for mastery? Some of the most successful people have not been successful the first time, the second time, the 10th time, the 20th time. I believe Thomas Edison is an example of that, right? What if that is the price of tuition that you pay to accomplish what you want to pay? Would you pay to learn faster? Would you invest in your growth? Then failure isn't a loss. It's a strategic investment. Use micro bravery. You don't need to do something huge. Start small. Practice being brave in tiny ways. Post that thing. Ask that question. Send that email. Consistency builds confidence, not courage. Visualize success, not disaster. So a positive mindset, again, is a big tool that you can use. Don't just obsess over what might go wrong. Spend time imagining what goes right. Feel it, taste it, visualize it clearly. The brain doesn't distinguish between imagined and real experience, so give it the right movie to watch. The positive movie, the one where you win in the end, the one where you're carried off the field on people's shoulders cheering for you, right? That movie, Rudy, right? Set process goals, not outcome goals. Don't aim for go viral or make 10,000 this month. Aim for post 3 times a week, pitch myself 5 times, record 1 podcast weekly. Process is under your control. Outcome is not. You can't fail if you're winning your process. Talk to fear like a friend. Hey, fear, I see you. I know you're trying to protect me, but we've got this. I'm not in danger. I'm just uncomfortable. Fear wants to be heard. Talk to it. Don't obey it blindly. Build evidence of courage. Start tracking moments when you showed up anyway. Write them down. Read them when self-doubt hits. Your brain needs proof. Build it. You need proof. You need repeatable things that have happened that show that you're brave and that you can do it, because you've done hard things before and you'll do hard things again, and you'll continue to do hard things because that's what life is sometimes. What happens if you don't act? Now let's flip the other scenario. Instead of asking, what if I fail? Ask, what if I don't try? What does it cost you? I would say that it costs you a lot more than you're probably willing to give. Years of regret, lost opportunities, self-trust erosion, the version of you you're meant to become. You're not avoiding failure. You're choosing a different kind of pain. Choose the one that leads somewhere. Failure is not your enemy. Fear is not your enemy. Inaction is. You're not here to live a life that's 100% safe and 0% satisfying. You're here to grow, to stretch, to try. So let this be your reminder. You can be scared and still move. You can fail and still rise. You can start small and still go far. Your next level is on the other side of one brave moment. If this episode hit home, do me a favor. Take one action today that scares you a little. Send the pitch, start the project, say yes. And if you found this helpful, leave a review, share this episode with someone you care about, and tag me on Instagram when you take your next brave step. Recovering_perfectionist_mama. You were made for more. Go get it. Thank you for watching today, and feel free to drop a comment on Instagram or TikTok or YouTube if you like. And thank you for watching. Have a great day. Bye-bye.